Hi, everybody. Welcome to the UEA's Nursing Podcast. We have another Meet the Lecturer episode today. My name's Joe Ellis-Gage, and today I am talking with Sophie. Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Joe.
Thank you for coming in. So we're going to have one of our Meet the Lecturer chats. So students will come across us all in different roles as advisors, as lecturers and module leads. But sometimes it's nice for them to know a little bit more about us. What's our background? How do we get here? What do we do? So that's what we're going to explore.
Brilliant.
But to start with, just give us a really brief introduction. Who are you and what's your role?
So my name's Sophie North and I'm part of the adult nursing team here and a lecturer in health sciences.
Fantastic. Okay, great. So we're going to find out how you got to this point of being sat in front of me and having to answer all my questions. But you came a different route into this than most people that I interview, because normally I start with a question somewhere around what made you get into nursing, when did you start nursing, etc. But you came in through a different route, and actually you trained as a doctor. So tell me about when you decided to do that. What got you into studying medicine?
Oh, really good question. So I think I was quite late into the kind of knowing what I wanted to do. But I had a brother with lots of complex health needs and had, I guess, got to see what an amazing difference really good healthcare professionals can make, and increasingly became really interested in the kind of people side of things. And that's how I got into medicine. But I always knew that I really wanted to focus on how to support people in a really kind of holistic way.
Yeah.
So that kind of mixture of biopsychosocial.
Yeah. Okay. So you had a little bit of a personal link in, but you kind of saw the bigger picture of it and what actually could be involved in medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you go straight into that straight from finishing school?
Yeah, I took a bit of time off, but yeah, pretty much straight in from finishing school. And I was really lucky. I did my training mostly in Leeds, but I also took I took some time out of medicine and I went and did a BSc in international health, also in London, because I was really kind of interested in global health. And
So you did that in between sort of part of your medical training? Or, yeah.
Yeah, so I took some time out of my medical training, kind of halfway through to go and do that.
Oh, sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it was really
so what
good.
made you suddenly go and do that?
I'd been working like in a voluntary role with, particularly on projects involving refugees and asylum seekers, and had become involved in a project which was mentoring young asylum seeking people. And it was through that I got really interested in thinking, I want to know more about kind of global health. I want to know more about this. So I took some time out to do that. And I did my dissertation looking at the health needs of young unaccompanied asylum seeking people.
Wow, that's really interesting. And then you went back, continued and finished your medicine.
Yeah.
But had that kind of extra knowledge or another degree already behind you.
Yeah. So I then went back and completed my course, and then went on to work in the hospital, but continued with this kind of interest around global health, but particularly around working with displaced groups.
So you were doing the kind of the traditional doctor job after qualifying.
Yeah.
But you always probably had a draw to that other area that some people don't have.
Yeah, I guess. And I was involved in quite a lot of different kind of community projects. So it gave me this really nice opportunity to kind of think about how the links were with both clinical medicine, but also with working kind of in a community, particularly in a community with people who have often had lots of different kind of multiple challenging experiences.
Okay. And at that point, were you thinking like that's kind of like the career route, or is it just an interest? Because obviously the thing, once you qualify as a doctor, everyone's asking what training route you're taking, what route you're going to go down, where you're going to end up. Were you thinking actually my little sub-interest is where I want to end up, or?
I don't think I was kind of a big enough thinker in a way, but I guess I was increasingly drawn, and experiences and people that I was meeting were increasingly making me think this is an area that I'd really like to understand more.
Yeah.
And see how I could work in more. So I guess I was sort of slowly drawn more and more towards that area. And then whilst I was working in hospital in Reading, an opportunity came up to be to co-direct and develop a project working with refugees and asylum seekers who had experienced extreme violence. And I then went for that project. So I then left working in the hospital to work on that project.
Brilliant. And what did that involve on a kind of, what did you do in that project?
It was really, really mixed, but we worked with different organisations, so some incredible organisations providing kind of different sorts of therapeutic support to offer retreats, which were based very much around kind of holistic support. So there were elements of kind of skill-based training alongside more therapeutic support. Lots of different aspects to it.
And a really different role. So using loads of your skills, I'm sure, but then being a doctor on the hospital, on the wards, to going into sort of coordinating all of that.
It was really, really, it was a big change, but I really felt so lucky because I realised how much I really enjoyed having the space and time to think in a slightly different setting about how to kind of holistically support, but also how to work with grassroots and different organisations. Yeah.
So there's loads of skills that you'll have developed in that time and links to other areas, and that sounds really interesting. So how long did you do that for?
So I was involved as the co-director for like 5 years, but I was involved in that project for a bit longer than that. But it was whilst at that project that there was a couple of experiences that made me think, I really want to be, particularly with people that I was working with, that made me think, I really want to be involved a bit more in working with healthcare professionals to think about how to make sure that the places that they're working are kind of inclusive and welcoming, particularly to people who've got an experience of extreme violence.
Okay. And was that something you realised that you hadn't particularly had in your training and your development, like prior to your own knowledge in it?
I think to some extent, I was really lucky in Leeds. You got quite a lot of opportunities to spend time in different kind of projects.
Okay.
So I did, for example, one of my projects I did with the Big Issue, and I did quite a lot of my placements in places where there was a really diverse population.
Yeah.
So I guess it was something that I was already kind of interested in, but it made me think, I feel like there's definitely a really important role for making sure that during healthcare training we really have time to reflect on and think about what the lived experiences might be of this kind of community group and population, and how we can make sure we're best supporting them.
Yeah. And so how did you go about doing that? You had this view that healthcare professionals needed to learn more. What did you do next?
So me and someone that I had met who was now working for the Red Cross, but he had lived experience himself of having to leave the Congo Brazzaville, and so me and him both approached the medical school first and asked if we could be involved in doing some teaching for medical students. So that's how it first started, and then we approached the midwifery team here in HSC and came in to do a couple of sessions with them. And it was kind of from then on that I realised how much I loved being involved in teaching and what an amazing opportunity it was. So that's how I first kind of got my foot into HSC, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So you came in with a plan of, this is my particular area that I want to be teaching on and my real passion. Yeah. But actually, once you were through the door, you were like, I quite like this.
Yeah.
This teaching's quite interesting. And it just, one thing led to another, and here you are. Yeah. And how long have you been at the UEA for?
So I first started as an associate tutor, I guess 11 years ago, but it will be 8 years actually. Last October, just the October we've just had, that I've been here with a lecturer position. Yeah. So I'm really lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're lucky to have you. It's like there are different experiences to bring in and help on the teachers, and you do a lot of work with getting service users involved in lots of our teaching programs already, which is really helpful as well. And then alongside this, you do some work with the University of Sanctuary. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so UEA has been a University of Sanctuary since 2018, and it's an initiative which happens at universities across the UK. So now there's more than I think there's more than 8 universities that have sanctuary scholarships or different routes for those seeking sanctuary to enter higher education. A smaller number that are now accredited as University of Sanctuary, but it's ever growing. And it's really an initiative which looks at how places can be places of welcome and inclusion, particularly for those who are forcibly displaced.
Yeah.
So at UEA, it's a really broad initiative. So we've got sanctuary scholarships, particularly for those who are in the asylum system who wouldn't be able to access higher education, wouldn't be able to access Student Finance England funding to come and study. But we also look at how we support students here from a background of forced displacement, and have got a whole kind of range of projects around that. But also looking at our teaching and the research that's happening. So it's a really broad initiative across the university. But yeah, lots of exciting streams of work happening within it.
Oh, that's interesting. So it sort of tries to get people in who may not otherwise come into university, looks at the support for them once they're here, and then looks at the teaching that we're delivering around that area at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's across the whole university, not just HSC. That's much wider.
Yeah, so we have students across the whole university that are part of the sanctuary community, but we also have academics. So we're also a member of something called the Council for At-Risk Academics.
Okay.
So we also have academics that might be come through that program, and there's an ever growing sanctuary community at UEA.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, that's really interesting. I mean, for a relatively short chat, an awful lot that you've done in your career that kind of is of interest. So hopefully students who've had a watch will find that interesting and might come and seek you out to ask your opinions on things if they've got a particular interest in a certain area. So thank you for coming in and telling us all about it.
Oh, thank you, Jay.
All right. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this chat with Sophie interesting. If you did, hit like, subscribe, and you'll get alerts when we get more videos come on. And you can ask questions in the comments box below, and have a look around at the other videos that we've got available, because there's a whole range that you might find interesting. And thanks for watching. Thank you.
Thanks.